For your 4-minute opening presentation.
Greg Cui from all United Nations. Thank you, Sir Chair. By a show of spirit fingers, let me see who in the audience believes the United States is a compassionate country.
Also, you're out of order for using the audience as a prop. I'm afraid we'll have to now move on to our non-debatable technical questions for a period of 4 minutes.
I thank the chair, Papangami from South Carolina. Now, obviously, I do want the West African nations to progress, become developed, and hopefully become equal to the United States in the future. However, this proposal is not the way to do this because it has several flaws, both in terms of its process and, of course, because of its side effects. First of all, the fact that the World Bank and the IDA are even cooperating with the United Nations Security Council points to a key flaw. China is the biggest investor in Western Africa and holds tremendous influence. Note, China also has a veto on the United Nations Security Council. Therefore, obviously, China is going to do whatever it can to block this sort of proposal from taking any action, and therefore I fear it is going to be very ineffective in achieving what it aims to do. Moreover, though, if we look to the actual regional sort of consequences of this proposal, we find that unfortunately, the West African area as a whole is far too unstable to simply give money to corporations. The fact is, if we look to precedent in the past, for example, Nigerian leaders like Sani Abacha or Yar'Adua, we find that tremendous corruption arises not just politically, but even from those business leaders who become rich. Even if we provide these corporations and companies in West Africa and allow them to become stronger and stronger, those corporations are simply going to take control over the West African economy, lead to more dictatorship, and lead to more totalitarian control over these highly unstable West African states. Therefore, obviously, throwing money at the West African nations, even these so-called targeted loans, is only going to cause tremendous instability and tremendous problems in the future by allocating far too much power in the hands of the few in West Africa. Moreover, if we look to further parts of this proposal, we find that power structure infrastructure needs to be developed before we simply put money in West Africa, simply because if we were to just put money in West Africa, there isn't any regional economy or regional market to be developed, and those for these West African nations are going to simply have to export all their goods, and unfortunately, in that sense, are going to have to combat with nations like China and those in Eastern Asia who have mastered the art of extremely cheap products. So obviously, and if we look to resources and natural resources that this proposal is also targeting, we find yet more problems. The fact is that all of these resources have to deal with monopolies and power organizations like OPEC. OPEC is not going to allow a nation like a tiny nation in West Africa to compete with them in terms of oil, and therefore, unfortunately, this proposal is not going to help the West African state. We need to enhance and better the infrastructure in West Africa in terms of political power and in terms of economics before we simply throw money in the area. I yield my time.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Logan Murphy, New York. Africa is the cradle of life, a beautiful continent, rich in its diverse cultures, countries, and natural environments. But in West Africa, all of this beauty is constantly being plundered and pillaged by foreign companies. Africa's wealth is vast in natural resources, having large deposits of oil, diamonds, 54% of the world's gold, and 85% of the world's platinum. These resources have made Africa a big, juicy steak for the mad dogs of foreign enterprise to sink their teeth into. It has become apparent that not much has changed since the 19th century scramble for Africa. In this age, we see what can only be described as neo-colonialism, with foreign direct investments reaching an astounding $38.8 billion in 2006, higher than it has ever been in the history of West Africa. Of the world. This has left West Africa food insecure, meaning that the people have an extremely difficult time obtaining food. This proposal isn't asking for money, just that we push the United Nations for a distribution of funds for the purpose of developing countries to concentrate these funds in West Africa for countries such as Ghana and the Ivory Coast, so that West Africa can realize its potential and stand on its own. Thank you. With that, I yield my time to the chair.
May I reserve any remaining time to Delegate Donahue?
From which state?
From North Carolina.
That is correct.
The main problem that I see with this proposal is corruption. In lines 26 to 28 of the proposal, it states that these grants and interest-free loans will be given to government and to domestic companies. However, there are some very serious problems with that. Many governments that are rich in natural resources in West Africa are extremely corrupt. Two examples are Nigeria and Equatorial Guinea, both of which have some of the richest natural resources, in this case oil, and both of which the corruption is astronomical. Many of these corrupt government officials that are benefiting from the current system, they will not want to change it, and therefore this proposal will be ineffective. Second, the money given to the government, there is no guarantee that it'll be used for what is intended. More than likely, it'll be swallowed by these corrupt governments and used for their own personal benefit. Second, the problem with giving it to domestic companies is that even with international companies, which are held under a much higher standard and are much more heavily scrutinized, there is still serious corruption in those companies giving money to the government. If we make these domestic companies, the corruption will be even greater. While I recognize these West African nations do need reform, handouts and interest-free loans are not the way to do it. In order to make a real difference, we need to give microloans to the citizens so that they can build up the economy for themselves. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Nigeria. It is the supposed model for African democracy. Although due to numerous coup d'etats in I would say the past 60 years, as well as widespread corruption between the House of Fulani, Igbo, and Yoruba ethnic groups,
All right, thank you, Speaker. Now.
Thank you, Sir Chair. Robert Pritchard, Delaware Delegation. I stand in full support of this proposal for several reasons. The fact of the matter is, in the words of the Vice President, where America can, America must. We have the capacity. We are a strong nation, a vibrant nation, and where America can, America must. What we see in Africa is a situation of great distress. The economies are suffering, and then what happens from that? There is less food. There is more corruption. So what do we do? Do we ignore the problem, or do we face it head on? America is not a nation that shies away from challenges. And the fact of the matter is, these are nations that need our help. Let me give you a quick example. While it's not mentioned in the proposal, Sudan is experiencing a genocide. A genocide in Darfur. 350,000 dead, 2.5 million displaced. And why? Because there is a lack of clean drinking water. Nowhere in the world. We've spoken about the United States of America. We've spoken about supporting our citizens. But what about the citizens of the world? By increasing their economies, what then happens? There is no need for that corruption. Why is there the corruption? Because these power-hungry dictators, what do they need? They need the only money, the only resources that nation has, and they will do whatever it takes to get their hands on it. Where America can, America must. We have the capacity. Let's stand up for a better world, just like we would stand for a better America. Thank you, Chair. I yield the remainder.
Thank you,
of my
Speaker.
time.
Now we will hear from